Our meeting to order. Appreciate everybody being here tonight, all of our guests. Look forward to hearing what you all have to share with us tonight. So, Tom, can we get a motion to pass the minutes from December 16th?
Yeah, motion to approve.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, so number 2 on our agenda. I remember when I joined county council in 2023, I actually came to a committee meeting before I joined, and there was the request for $100,000 a year for 3 years, $300,000 from the chamber. And since that point, boy, significant things have happened for you all. So we're really excited. We can't take credit for it, but we did give a little money, a little investment into the effort, and you all have taken that and extrapolated that out in great return. So we look forward to hearing more about what you've been doing over the last 3 years and what you plan to do moving forward too. So thanks
Sure.
for being here. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks, Watts, and the county does deserve a great deal of credit. When we started, the board and we were kind of considering this vision, we knew that we needed some seed money to take off, and so the money the county provided, enabled us to. We had hired Celeste, but then it gave us the confidence to send her through all the training that was necessary, and really just focus strictly on what we've now have dubbed LIFT, and Celeste will talk about that. But just in the last 3 years, I want to just touch on a number of outcomes and some of the ROI we've already experienced. The first thing you see there is the school districts. We've actually been instrumental in helping Rock Hill, York, and Clover school districts with expanding the Leader in Me Franklin Covey platform. We helped them secure over $1 million collectively of the 3 schools with funding, and we've actually developed a relationship with a national foundation. It's the family that owns Generac generators that are willing to invest in additional schools in York County and this region for Leader in Me.
How'd that come about?
20 years of asking them, and then they've finally agreed. They had always been investing in schools in the Midwest, and they kind of started seeing a lot of the growth in the Southeast. And we were fortunate and to connect them, and we'd been asking, and just so happened when Tommy Smallsy was superintendent of Rock Hill Schools, he was from the same small town in Minnesota that family's from. And they had some mutual acquaintances. So they said, yeah, we'll take a chance on you guys. And since then, they've actually earmarked significant monies for the Carolinas.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
the Winthrop University is next on the list. They actually launched their honors college based on leadership development, the first and only in the nation for that, and it's based on, again, Covey content, Leader U. They identified 25 students that specifically have come and enrolled in Winthrop specifically for that, and another 175 students at Winthrop are now part of that program. So in the first year out of the gate, 200 students, and that was actually their goal for 5-year build-out. So they actually have that in year 1. And what that means for us locally, that's over $895,000 of revenue to our community for those 25 additional students that wouldn't have come here. It's an extra $6,269,000 of keeping money here from those students that chose to stay and enroll. If you go to the next one, Laurel Institute, we've helped land Laurel Institute over in Fort Mill. They've now graduated. They have 20 new employees, over $1 million of annual wages. They plan to add 10 more employees this year, which will be another $500,000 of annual wages. They've graduated over 20 students that already have jobs. 40 are expected to graduate this year. That will amount to over $1 million of annual revenue or wages. And this is kind of a nice statistic that I'd shared with Tom a while back. They paid property taxes to York County in 2025 of $122,764, and this year, in 26, we'll pay $173,537. So that's direct return on y'all's investment here. So I'd like to point that out. We've worked with Atrium and York Tech to create a nursing pathway for students. Tom, most of these students are actually live in the Fort Mill area.
Wow.
And they wanted to do their clinicals at Atrium in Pineville. But due to state reciprocity rules and laws, they weren't allowed to. Celeste, through the sector strategy work, was able to work with Atrium, with York Tech, get approvals through both states, and get that done. Since then, they've had right at 30 students do clinicals from York Tech at Atrium. And they've actually hired 16 nurses and 7 surgical techs. And so the annual wages for those 23 employees now is $1.26 million annually. And they expect to have many more coming. And with the York Tech health sciences expansion that they're going to do now, they're going to be doubling their nursing program, so that'll be even more.
That's awesome.
Our EPIC, our Employer Provided Innovation Challenge, we've had 150 college students have participated in that. We actually have had 6 direct hires as a result of those students getting that work-based learning there. And then our Corporate Core program has trained more than 100 supervisors and managers, and those companies have expanded their employment. All total, you can see kind of the annual wages that we've already created is $5.6 million. We've generated an additional $8 million to the local economy, and we've have property taxes collected of $300,000. So I wanted to kind of preface that because, it's not always easy for the county to look at, okay, if we give money to a nonprofit to support something they're doing, is there a true return on it? And here you can see that there is some true return. But that's just in the time period that we were building out our program. So going forward, Celeste will talk about where the program's going, and then I'll kind of conclude with what the economic impact of that could be.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
So when we first got together back in 2023, we talked about kind of what our goal and our mission was. And this is where we started. This is the exact slide that I presented that evening. Our goal for workforce and talent development at the Chamber under our foundation was to bring education, business, workforce partners together to create those high-quality, sustainable workforce solutions for the entire county. That was the goal. We weren't exactly sure what it was going to look like, but we knew it had to have a few components. Advocacy, really worrying about those wraparound pieces that are barriers or impact our workforce, housing, transportation, childcare, anything that might be happening in that space. Employer collaboratives, our programming, and our talent concierge. And so we'll talk about those as we go on. So just a little quick reminder, there are a lot of people in the space of workforce development that are doing some great things, but they're not looking at it at the lens from the employer and going backwards. And that's where we come in, is taking our employer, looking at them and kind of going backwards to and meeting our educational or that supplier of talent. And so this is another one that I use as a great way to explain how that works. So the end customer being in a traditional supply chain being the business, right? That user of the talent, that raw material being our student. And there's a lot of things that happen to them just like it does a raw material along the way. And so we had to figure out who were in those spaces, who's doing what. Our goal was to never duplicate or take resources or to muddy those waters at all. It's figuring out how can we enhance what's already existing. And so we created what's a value stream map. We all kind of know this from kind of the Lean Six Sigma, right? All of that, those processes. And we looked at it from the perspective of the suppliers of talent and the users of talent. So our suppliers of talent being our K through 12 or other sources of talent, and our users of talent being our employers. And we were trying to figure out programmatically what can we have an impact on? What can the investment that's been given to us, what can we then do and put that back into the community? And this is how we do it. So Dean mentioned EPIC, which is one of the first things that we started, and I'll give you a little bit more details as we go on. But in the career awareness and guidance and career exploration and preparation, we've got some programmatic work that we're doing in that space with our K through 12s and our higher eds. In that middle phase of time where they're in between, going either from high school to post-secondary or whatever that looks like, maybe even military, there's another piece of time when they're coming into the company. And that's where our Talent Concierge program, where I actually go into the companies and talk about what are your biggest issues? Is it recruitment? Is it retention? And sometimes it's all the above. And so how do we then take some of the other programmatic pieces that we have to benefit even the employees that are already there? How do we help them retain them and upskill those employees? And that's where our leadership core and our corporate core, which are existing, and even our nonprofit management certificate program, because our nonprofit partners are such a big part of that workforce ecosystem. So this just kind of gives you a great view of kind of that value stream map of how we're hitting along that way, from even K, all the way from kindergarten, all the way to our seasoned employee, even all the way up to retirement.
So, quick question on this. So when you look at this scale, so, and I guess I'm thinking of when a client's looking to expand in an area, right? Or they want to come into this area, and they need, 35 employees with this skill set. Do they submit then, is there a portal they can submit in to say, I need, 100 employees, whatever, with these skill sets? Where does the demographics match up?
Yeah.
And how does that approach?
Right, so, when we have the two kind of entry points, right? So if we've got a company that's coming into the county initially, like this is their first step into the county,
Yeah.
that's where it's going through economic development. And
Sure.
so there's so many Mitch has such a great team there that especially if they're in that advanced manufacturing, distribution, logistics space,
Right.
and they're coming in through and being vetted, and then they go out to the partners. We're one of those partners, but sometimes it might be anything at this technical college level or at the state level, Ready SC, any of those types of things. If we have companies that are expanding, that are existing, or something that wouldn't come through economic development, a lot of times we do get those calls. And I actually go in and work with the company and figure out, okay, what is that talent need? What is that skill set? What is that, next phase of either professional development that they might need? Is it
Yeah.
a York Tech conversation? Is it a Winthrop? Is it a Clinton?
Okay.
Is it Voc Rehab, right? What are all these sources of talent that we have, and how do we bring those to the table?
Okay. And do we have an idea of, say, we have the number of kids enrolled in certain programs, so, and that way we can align it with future opportunity?
So what we've spent a lot of time doing is becoming fantastic partners with all of our educational institutions, both K through 12, public, charter, private, higher ed, post-secondary, all of those, even our for-profit schools. So understanding what is happening in the county is part of our due diligence, and that's the only way we can help our businesses be successful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good.
Takes a lot of time of Celeste being out of the office. Someone asked the other day, "Where's Celeste?" We don't know. She's somewhere.
She's somewhere. There
Right,
you go.
just call her.
That's it.
So I wanted to highlight the programmatic pieces, and so one of the pieces that we needed most was help and support in this area, and that's where we hired Dylan. You've met Dylan before as he was talking about the Small Business Toolkit. He was very instrumental in creating that for us, and so I know that he had the opportunity to present that. He was our intern for about a year and a half, and we had the opportunity to hire him. So his role is the LIFT Programs Coordinator. He will run these programs that I'm about to talk to you about. So Business Expedition, this is one that we created because we wanted to bring the real world to our students, specifically middle school students, as they were getting ready to do their IGPs in middle school in 8th grade before they went off to high school. They have to decide a major and a track. And if they don't know what's in their backyard, how on earth can we, make sure that they know what's going on and can kind of figure out what their next steps are? So in addition to taking them in person, we also have some MOUs with York Tech and SC Works for the VR headsets. And so Dylan has helped us create a program to where we can take the VR headsets into the schools, so they're getting that career exploration even in their classroom. So we've done that in a few different places. We've taken Saluda Trail to All American Cornhole when it was over on Mount Gallant for them to design cornhole boards and understand how advanced manufacturing works. It doesn't look and feel the way it did maybe when their parents or grandparents experienced advanced manufacturing. We took them to the city of Rock Hill School District's enrollment program. And then even at Beaufort Middle School, we've done something regionally with some of our partners, and Dylan and I brought in the VR headsets, and so you can kind of see some experiences they've had. We've done plenty of others. These were just 3 to show.
That's awesome.
So Epic, as Dean mentioned, this was the first one that we started with, and this is where we're partnering our businesses with our educational institutions inside of a classroom, and of course us, the chamber. And it breaks students into teams as they work on a challenge that's presented by the business. York County Natural Gas did this across Winthrop's campus and had 39 students working on a challenge. They were able to present, enhance their durable skills, their soft skills, while also creating something very impactful for York County Natural Gas. So much so that the new mascot that you see for York County Natural Gas, Glow, came from an Epic project that was done by Winthrop students. So during this, right, they're getting exposure to the employers that are in our region that they may not even know about, or they may know, yes, well, when I turn the gas on, it works, but they don't know how that happens. And so getting close and getting great knowledge of these employers is important. From the employer's perspective, they're able to work with students in a way that they might not can. So York County Natural Gas specifically is not able to take on traditional interns because of their industry. Well, now they've got 39 students that they were able to impact and work with and potentially hire, and they ultimately did hire a young lady to work for them based on this EPIC project. So we've done it with all of our higher eds, and we are now doing our very first one with Rock Hill Schools at Rock Hill ATC. So we're even moving it down to the high schools, and we'll be doing one this summer as a camp. At the end of whatever the EPIC happens to look like, they do receive a digital badge, a credential from the U.S. Chamber Foundation. So it's validated by not only us, but the U.S. Chamber and the employer at the same time. I had the opportunity to take 3 different groups of students to DC, 4 different things that they were able to do. So we took a group from Winthrop to DC to present based on EPIC that they did with Keystone. The picture in the middle was the winning group from York County Natural Gas that they had done and presented. And then we had the very first group from Clinton College from Comporium that we were able to take, fully funded by the U.S. Chamber Foundation, to take them to DC to celebrate this great work. The last one I wanted to highlight for you in programmatic pieces that Dylan will be working on specifically is World of Work. And this is a regional collaborative kind of partnership with our regional workforce advisor and our regional career specialist for the Catawba region. And this one goes into the middle schools. And so we wanted the new system for our schools for the career clusters has been redesigned, and there's now 14 career clusters. They've taken those 14 career clusters and grouped them into 6 categories, which we affectionately call worlds. And so that's where World of Work came from. And we take an immersive experience, hands-on experience into the middle schools. We work with their counselors, and so far we have already worked with over 400 students, and we have about almost 600 that we'll work with just in the month of end of March, beginning of April. So we were meeting about that a while ago. This was one from Beaufort that we just did. We had almost 400 students that we worked with, which also included a career expo for them to learn what was in their back door. We're doing our next ones at Oak Ridge Middle School, Clover Middle School, York Middle School, and then Louisville and Great Falls. In collaboration, of course, with our regional partners. This is a copy of the career clusters, what that looks like now. This is what our kids are learning and kind of when they go into their IGP for 8th grade into high school. So the colored blocks are the worlds.
Can I interject?
Sure.
One reason you think like Beaufort Middle's in Lancaster, Great Falls, Louisville, or in Chester, and you think, well, why are we going outside of our own county? Well, if you look at our workforce, about 50% of our workforce commute in, and many of those commute in from Lancaster and Chester. So we know that this work needs to be done more regionally than just locally, because our employers, they don't necessarily care where somebody lives. And with affordable housing challenges, many of our employers are actually seeing employees that commute as much as an hour away.
Have you seen an improvement in the schools where it comes to industrial arts, where they've expanded because of this? Or they've had more conversations
You
at
know, it's
least?
interesting. So we were speaking to Castle Heights Middle School yesterday, and because they have kind of asked us if we can do one of these before the end of the school year. And so we're
Gotcha.
trying to make it work. And so I asked them, what are you already doing?
Right.
And she looked at me and said, nothing. She said, or very little, right?
Right.
And Dylan was on the call, so
Yep.
he can
Yeah.
vouch for me.
Yeah.
But there was only 1 or 2 things that they were doing. So our schools are in desperate need of that partnership.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
doing,
Big.
some of them are doing really well with the
Right.
resources that they have.
Yeah.
And then others, this is a great opportunity for someone else to come in with a pre-packaged. Now, we do work with the schools to tailor it to their needs for their students. But bringing in something that's almost pre-packaged to the school and just having this super event for them that is targeted to the needs that they have
Sure.
identified.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
the ones at Oak Ridge and at Clover that we're doing at March 31st and April the 2nd, they're curated by their counselors. And so those students are actually doing a career inventory before we come. And based on that career inventory, they will be set up in what sessions they go to. And so we will have a session for every single career cluster, which are 14. So we're finalizing that today, and students will go to their top 4 of those.
Gotcha. Good deal.
So So where this jumps off of, and this is the last piece, is, and this is why we hired Dylan, was now that we've got this programmatic work going, and letting it being very impactful, it allows me to step away from that and move on to the kind of the higher level piece of that, and that's the sector strategy work. And really understanding with our top industries in the county, what are the biggest pain points, what are the challenges for our businesses, and working directly with them to figure out how do we solve those, how do we create those pathways. So this is kind of where I'm focused on this next phase of work. And why we're doing it is because we want it to be employer-led. So stop telling our businesses what they need to know from the education front, right? And letting our businesses actually speak for themselves. This is what I want our employees to have. These are the skill sets that they need. These are the pathways that I want created. And so this is an employer-led perspective using the talent pipeline management. It'll allow them to reduce cost and time because there are dedicated pathways. The programs that are running, they meet the needs of our employers. So we're starting with healthcare first, and so that's the first one that we're going with and bringing our hospital systems together. You think, we talk about a lot that there's the nursing shortage. Well, they know that, and they know what they're doing. We met with one healthcare provider, and they were like, no one's thinking about the imaging piece or the maintenance piece. And so really kind of truly tackling what are the things that's keeping these healthcare professionals up at night. And helping to create those programs. So really looking at that, of course, we'll go healthcare, advanced manufacturing, hospitality, professional, back office, those pieces next. So doing those one at a time and going through a systematic strategy and program for them. So that's my next piece of the work now that we have Dylan going forward. Okay? And that is us.
So the thing that's, when you look at this, when we first sat out 3 years ago on this effort, it was like, let's build a comprehensive talent development plan for York County, how to meet the needs of the majority of our employers. And so Celeste's charge on that has kind of been building that out and putting all these pieces of the puzzle together. This sector strategy work that she talks about, there are only two organizations in the Carolinas, us and the North Carolina Chamber. North Carolina Chamber is doing it actually statewide. We're doing it more regionally focused. The reason for that is there's only two people in the Carolinas that have the TPM facilitation certification that Celeste has, and it's Celeste and Vincent, who is at the North Carolina Chamber. So this work is very unique in the Carolinas. We're kind of setting ourselves up to be one of the top talent development regions because of it. And as a result, reason that I'm here, and I've mentioned this to Watts and Mitch and to Tom, so from this, we've developed LIFT, which we call Leadership Institute for Talent. There's 17 different programs of work that are within this, and we have been in a process of hiring. We hired a consultant to help us build this out, this 5-year strategic plan. And so now it's what the next 5 years looks like. We know that our budget over the next 5 years will be $300,000 a year. We are in the process of actually raising money from the private sector. We have now secured $1.1 million from the private sector. And like I said, if you recall, when I came 3 years ago, and Christy, I told you this, I'm coming asking for seed money. I will not come back and ask y'all just to sustain us and keep us afloat and be the only way that we can do this work. But what I will ask is you to continue to partner with us and play a role in this, but not be the sole sustainer. We've got, we expect to raise $1.5 million by the end of the year from our private sector, but we would like for the county to consider continuing to do the $100,000 that you've given us a year for the last 3 for an additional 5 to help enhance that and take us even to a higher level so that we could really kind of blow this out and extend beyond what we first have. But I'm just incredibly appreciative of the partnership that we have with Mitch and your team, the county enabling us to get started on this. And I think over the next 5 years, we will all be proud of the outcome, and we will have forever impacted our talent and our workforce development in this region. So thank y'all for your time.
Yeah,
Great stuff.
appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions?
No, I think you guys have hit a home run, and we're looking forward to continue to play ball. So, The question, I guess one question I do have is around, with this program, is there thought around the integration into the toolkit, small business toolkit, how we can expand on that with this?
Do you want to take that, or you want me to put
I'm
my
gonna,
two thoughts
I'm gonna let
in?
you put your
Okay.
two
Okay.
cents on that.
So, what we're seeing by going into the companies.
Yeah.
Most of our companies fit that small business
Yeah.
framework, right?
Yeah.
We do have some larger companies, but
Yeah.
most of them are in that small business. And what we're also finding out is being able to fine tune that small business toolkit. What do they need?
Right, exactly.
Dylan and I have the opportunity of sitting on lots of groups and hearing these conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and then now kind of going in and saying, okay, we did it, right? With a lot of these other things, we did it, we put it out
Yeah.
there. Now, what businesses are using? How do we evaluate that?
Right.
How do we improve it? So how do we make it even more impactful for them?
Okay, good.
And
good.
Tom, I just finished a grant with one of the companies that has pledged support, and then I had to go through their grant portal to
Yeah.
complete a grant.
Yeah.
Got to do that. And in there, as we were going through, they were asking us what percentage of the businesses that we'll be impacting will be small businesses.
Right.
Under $1 million a year annual revenue.
Yeah.
And so we had to do a little bit of research and digging into that, and we ascertained that that percentage would actually be 55% of the companies that we impact will be small business.
All right.
So it will tie in nicely
Perfect.
with the toolkit.
Perfect.
When you think about it, they're the ones that need what we're doing the
Yeah,
most,
yeah,
right?
they do.
And our larger companies.
And they have
Yeah.
they have less ability because they don't have HR departments, they don't have someone
Exactly.
that can work directly there, so.
Exactly.
So, we're a good conduit.
Well, I appreciate you continue to drive that. That's a big deal.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank
And I think the last thing I'll add, because I know it's important to you guys, for us to utilize tax dollars, and that's what this amounts to. Remember that this work that Celeste and Dylan are doing, they're on the Chamber Foundation side. That's our 501c3. That is not a member-based entity. It actually works for the entire county, and it works for all businesses. The Chamber, which has our advocacy side and some of our traditional chamber networking work, that is a member-based organization. So this work is actually directly on this, not the chamber per se. So understand the difference in case anybody ever asks, well, hey, they've only got 750 businesses, so we're just going to help them. No. This work helps all of our businesses.
Yeah, exactly.
Thinking
Awesome.
ahead, I know yesterday the City of Rock Hill had State of the City, and I wasn't able to go to that unfortunately, but I did go
We
to
were
the
there.
presentation.
Very informative.
Yeah, and they announced the Palmetto Cabinet that's going to be working on development going down 77, I think predominantly, and advanced manufacturing is going to be the next sector. So y'all are working on healthcare now. Can you share just some thoughts of what you're thinking related to advanced manufacturing? Because
Yeah.
we do have a shortage of engineers.
Right. So it's really, so the next piece of that is bringing those together and understanding. So working with Teresa and working with Rick and Jason over at Rockville, even Fort Mill Partner, all of those people in that space, and then kind of bringing those together. I already worked with Teresa on the HR roundtable. The RHEDC has pulled together this group called The Force, where it's kind of the workforce ecosystem and creating that unified messaging around that. So we'll be able to push that forward as well. So when you do have some companies coming in that are expanding or even brand new, that you've got common language, and we know those conversations that need to be had. And really understanding, what does York Tech have? How do they need to expand? What does Winthrop have? Where do they need to expand? Sebastian over at Winthrop is already creating an engineering program around manufacturing. So they're listening, they're having conversations. The director of the graduate school, her and I meet on a monthly basis because they now have the competency-based education. And so we're really talking about, and so we're opening that up to the manufacturing. So they're even willing to do a whole concentration on advanced manufacturing, bringing in kind of people at a certain level that could teach some of those classes in that competency based. So it's, instead of things being in silos, it's making sure that there is an entry point for someone in that advanced manufacturing world at every education point as well.
Yeah, okay. Definitely going to need your support when it comes to advanced manufacturing in York County, which is one of our priorities in economic development. Well, just appreciate everything you all are doing. I think you all were recognized last year as the #1 small chamber in the Carolinas, which had a lot to do with what you're doing with workforce development. And I'd say this, I don't mind saying this, years ago, I'd say, other than business after hours, what was the chamber really doing for the business community? and you're actually doing some things that are just significant for York County and beyond. So real appreciative that you all have the vision that you have and you're carrying it out, because we're going to benefit from your effort, no doubt.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Great job, y'all.
Christie, anything you want to?
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate you being
Excellent.
here.
Thank y'all.
All right, we're going to go to agenda item number 3, and this is the Bailey Bill, which right now has to do with Clover, South Carolina.
Sorry.
So,
Take care.
we good to go ahead and
Good to
jump
see
in?
you.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks, Dylan.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys having us.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
Hey, it's good to see you.
So, I was trying to think of the best way that I could get Eduardo introduced to you all, and I thought, you know what? Let's have him do a presentation. That way you can ask questions.
Great.
But I'm going to give him a brief intro and let Eduardo jump in here with the Bailey Bill. But Eduardo came over from Rock Hill. He served as their economic development specialist. Eduardo also has some great experience working within the region with the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, also with the Small Business Development Center, and I think he's going to be a great addition to our team. It's been there right at 2 months.
Almost 2 months.
Almost 2 months. So excited to have him on board and appreciate the work he's already contributing to and being part of. But with that being said, I'm going to throw him to the fire and let him kind of go through the Bailey Bill.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be with the county now. Like Mitch said, I was coming from the city of Rock Hill, where I did most of my work was with small business and entrepreneurship and placemaking too. So with that, we will talk today about the Bailey Bill, and as you may recall, there was some discussion back in December about what the Bailey Bill is and what it could look like for York County. So our team and our office, we did some additional research, and so the information that we're presenting today is more so you can make a decision that's informed based on some examples and things like that. So and then we will go into some implementation considerations too. And see.
Okay.
So, for the purpose, again, for this discussion today is to really look into some examples of the local and state level. Also, what a typical ordinance structure is used by other communities. So we will look at, the other communities, what they have used. We will touch on some administrative oversight considerations, because as we know, if we do adopt an ordinance, someone has to follow up through, the requirements and also the compliance side of things. And the last piece is that we will also talk about an example of an opportunity of how this bill could be applied in the county. So we look in the different communities that we have about which communities have already adopted this ordinance at the local level. So the first one in our county here was Fort Mill in 2011. They were the first to adopt the Bailey Bill at the local level. And then, of course, we have York and Clover. At the state level, we have Greenville County, Beaufort County, and Richland County. The bill says that, that it could be the term or the period of this could be up to 20 years. What you see in most programs use something between 10 and 20. So actually in York, we have Clover is the one that is doing 20 years. Then the other two communities are doing 10 years. In terms of the minimum investment, they require anything from 20% to up to 75%. So again, if we look at the local level, Fort Mill is the one that requires most investment, which is 50% of the value of the property when they first start. The historic requirement, that's the same standard throughout that, because that's what is specified in the Bailey Bill. Based on this information, some possible York County options is to adopt, a term between 10 and 15 years, and then do something in the middle between 20 and 30% of the required investment. And then other things to consider to include in the ordinance could be to also put a completion time of when the project needs to be completed or they need to start. So Greenville County does this, so that way too, like it's not that you get approved and then they are sitting on the property for years before they can develop it. And a program review clause is another good practice that will allow the county council to go back in 5 years from now and say, well, let's look at how effective this is. Do we need to make changes? Do we have to, get rid of the ordinance? And then the other thing is you can apply it countywide, or you can also apply only with the municipalities that have already adopted the Bailey bill. So for instance, you see City of Rock Hill is not listed there. So if you do go that way, that approach, initially we'll just apply for your Clover and Fort Mill. Or you can also decide to do it countywide.
We can't do it, can we not do it project specific to try this out? It has to be like a whole,
What we're going to talk about, I think what we could do, and probably the best approach would be, let's focus on some corridors where we want to see improvement. For example, and I'll touch on this here in a couple slides, what if we looked at a corridor between Clover and York and used anchor points like downtown Clover, downtown York, the American Thread building? I think that's probably the better approach if we do it that way, so we're not, so we kind of have guidelines just for that entire corridor, rather than having to look at every single individual project and establish our own guidelines based off of that.
And it could be that you can, there's a historic designation that you can say, well, it only applies to this specific area. Now, the one thing about pairing it with existing communities is that just complements what they already have, and just incentivize the developer or the property owner to do more, because of course they will get the benefit at the city level, but then they will also get it at the county level.
can you go back one?
Yep.
So at the end of the day, what is the Bailey bill requires, what do they get in return? You designate this corridor, what do they get?
So the Bailey bill, what it does is they will freeze their taxes for they say if you decide 10 years. So they say the property that they are going to redevelop is valued at $100,000 right now. And they come in and they invest, I don't know, let's say 100,000 more. Well, for 10 years, the property value or taxes will be taxed at the value that before the investment happened. So for 10 years, even though now the property is worth, I don't know, 200,000, 250,000, for 10 years, that property owner is only paying the previous tax value of the property. And then after 10 years, it resumes to the actual value.
And as it stands, like in Fort Mill, where they've had some success, it's only focused on Fort Mill's millage. Doesn't affect the county, doesn't affect the schools.
So it's almost like a TIF. You freeze the tax assessment at a base year?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
And just so I'm clear, because I'm hoping I'm not misstating something, but I mean, don't we know, Clover's really, we got a project, right, to consider, are we allowed to talk about, like?
American Thread Building, yeah.
Is there a way, I am a little bit concerned because council just had a retreat and there's all these things that are happening that are about to cut taxes and states doing stuff taken from the counties, and we don't know how that's gonna work out. Not that you stop that, but I guess I hear what you're saying about you think the better way to do it is to narrow it to a corridor. I'm wondering, I mean, like, can we not test this out? Can we pilot it out with that project in mind, and let's just see how it, I don't know.
I mean, that's always a possibility too, yeah, it is.
Yep.
And I'd also like to ask Eduardo or Mitch, what are the advantages or disadvantages of doing Bailey bills versus, say, SSRC?
So this goes right into conversations we've had about previous incentive projects. As I talked about Fort Mill, what they've used the Bailey bill for is only looked at the Fort Mill millage. And so if we were to do it from a county's perspective, it's only going to focus on the county millage. It wouldn't affect schools. What you're really looking at too in a lot of cases, this is not going to be like a traditional economic development project that's going to be a $70 million investment, unless it's something like American Thread. That's going to be a significant investment. This is probably more of a tool for, 10,000 square foot downtown building that's going to have, a small business in it. That's really what you're looking
So
at.
below the FILO threshold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This.
That's what we're trying to fix,
Yeah.
is the FILO threshold.
So, I mean.
And, well, are you saying that that's the recommendation, is that it would only apply to the county taxes? Or is that, are you saying the law doesn't allow us to do anything more than,
That's what the law allows.
Okay.
Yeah.
even if they agree or anything?
If we wanted to go a route of doing like an SSRC, this is what we did for the hotel project in York. That would affect all taxing districts. This here is specifically looking at York County's millage.
So here are just some examples of how Fort Mill had used this. Like I said, they adopted the bill in 2011. Since then, they have had 5 projects. So one is underway right now. And you can see, like, this is what it looked like back in 2016. And some of these places were empty back then. Some of them had some other businesses. But then, it got changed to different uses, so that some of them now have restaurants. And, this is what it looks like now in 2026. And as you know, if you go to Fort Mill, that has really transformed Main Street. And they have used this as a tool really to support small businesses and to really bring life back to the downtown. And with that, this is just what the framework of ordinance may look like. These are just what the typical structure is used with other communities. There will be a section with the purpose of the program, what is it for, then it will have what eligible historic properties are included in there. So that's where you may be able to limit to only maybe one or more. We'll have to do more research on that, specifically how much we can limit that. What is the minimum amount that you will require from the investment? The assessment freeze period, again, the bill allows you up to 20 years. You can do less than that, you can go up to 20. What would the application certification process look like? So what are the steps for that? Again, another thing about if you match that with the municipality, they already have a process to certify the property, they're already doing that. So it becomes also like, well, maybe you require them to first do the municipality process on it. They already have been vetted before we get into the county level. Then there's also the compliance piece of it. So once these get approved and they start developing it, someone has to ensure that they are actually saying what they said they were saying, but also, that in the next few years that the property is still in good order before moving on. And then there needs to be coordination with municipalities if the property is between the city limits, or if you use like Lower York and Fort Mill. And then the program review piece. And then the other thing is the administrative oversight. So again, someone will have to have an oversight on this policy. So in the application review, the verification of the investment, the historic eligibility confirmation, and the compliance piece to it. So one possible office that can administer that will be the York County Economic Development Office, since we already do that process with the PHILO and the SSRC. We keep the records in there, so we can just naturally, just do the same for this type of incentive or this type of initiative.
So Eduardo, did Fort Mill and York have to come before county council as well to get approved for the Bailey bill?
They are only focused on their millage, so it was just their own governing
Their
body.
own millage?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so if
correct.
Clover wanted to do it for their own millage, they could.
Which they have.
They already have, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So what this will do is like, it will complement what they already have, so.
Okay, so that goes back to Christie's question, if I could ask that then. So what we're saying is on the American Thread building, Clover's willing to freeze their property taxes and then we'll freeze ours. School district still gets their full.
That's correct.
Or they could agree to freeze it as well?
If we go that route, the better route,
Yes,
Watts, is
yeah.
really to look at an SSRC and
Okay. Yeah.
I like the idea of the schools being kept whole, and I think I like this thing.
Yeah.
But I am a little concerned, like picking and choosing winners, where you're gonna do stuff and doing a whole area. I mean, I get the point of identifying criteria. It's a little nervous to think. I think we ought to start with what we know we wanna target.
I probably should have answered this better when you asked the question. We can identify a corridor for eligibility, but we can still approve projects, and we can do it through this committee if we want to do that.
And also, it only applies for historic buildings, so there are
Yeah.
specific criteria that they will have to fall in. So like, one of them, I think it has to be 50 years or older than that. There's other things that is already in the bill that, before they can qualify for this incentive or.
Have we identified what buildings in York County would fall into that category? If not, maybe we should inventory what buildings fall in that category and strategically look and see which ones we should encourage this in.
We can definitely do a greater inventory than what we have. Sorry, I know you want to say something. You were gonna say
No, when they're finished.
It might be helpful just to give you kind of a vision of how we're approaching this and how this can be a tool in our toolbox. I know we've talked a lot about capstone projects like Project Trail Mix and beyond, some ag-related initiatives. I think we're at a point where a lot of that vision is now being put on paper and trying to see how do we make these things happen. I'm gonna have to drive from this, so I apologize, I'm not gonna be able to look at you all. We're really looking at corridor planning as a whole and thinking, how do we influence change working with municipalities? Because in between the municipalities, obviously, is unincorporated York County and the impact that it has within it. So one of the things that we've kind of internally kind of tabbed this trail network is the York County Thread Line. And then using that as a true corridor to think about where do we see change potentially happening? How can we influence economic development from a different lens? I think what we've always operated as an organization that focuses on recruitment and incentives. We've got to reimagine that process. I think it's very clear that you probably would like for us to reimagine that process too, because we're feeling some of the community pressure through growth, through other things that have happened over the period of the last 10, 15 years. And so with that, Jose, who's here and he can speak to this, has really been putting together a list of key important pieces. What you see there in blue is the proposed Carolina Thread Trail. This is something that Thread Trail's put together. That's not a direct path for any future trail, but it's something that we can at least use as a guideline. From there in green is areas that York County Forever owns, and so that's open, preserved green space. If there's opportunities that we can tie into that as we look at corridors through the trails and beyond. Red are parks, orange is more your community builders such as farms, for instance. This is Bush and Vine, right here in orange to give you perspective. And then purple is really revitalization opportunities. And so we see like anchor points as I talk about with the Bailey bill and what we could do. That's an anchor point in downtown Clover that we can look to say, how can we use this bill to really start to influence change along this corridor? And how can we connect investments that we're gonna make, maybe tied to Project Trail Mix, and really think about how this tool can help influence here, and we can work with a developer and really have a plan for a future beyond just the building. Another anchor point, is American Thread, just to the south of there. Downtown York. And then there's been some recent conversations too about York Place. So using those anchor points, using that map to really scale out and say what are connection points in between, like the green with York County Forever, like Bush and Vine there in orange, and then really having a bigger corridor plan and saying, in this area, we're gonna focus on historic preservation, in this area, we're gonna focus on agriculture, and here's how we're gonna tie all this in together. I think that's something our department really has to start thinking bigger on in terms of community investments, how economic development helps fuel some of those things to actually happen, and how it all works together, rather than us just bringing project by project to you all, and becomes a difficult conversation at times.
Adequate public facilities that you brought up, whatever night that was this week, could trails be a part of that as well? So each developer, whether it's residential, commercial, whatever, industrial,
It's considered a parks facility if we own it publicly, so I believe so.
yeah, okay.
So this is my last slide over here, some potential committee direction, is for the committee to consider directing the staff to evaluate some ordinance options. We can look more to on the eligibility criteria, like is it like the county, is it specific to one area, one corridor? And, we could do potentially a draft ordinance for review. But that's for you to consider.
At this point, we have no idea what that building would be worth tax value wise if it were or two buildings, if they were both fully renovated, do we?
I don't have a true perspective yet. My hope is that we'll have a better idea here in the next 2 weeks. I've talked with Zach Lester, Town Administrator for Clover. He's going to set up some time so I can talk with a potential developer and really get a better perspective on that project.
Then we'd understand how much money we're freezing, for what period of time, what kind of investment is this, and we can make some of these decisions, and if we're gonna do this on, what are the parameters?
The other thing too, like, the American Thread building, this is a map, again, too, of where it is, how far is it from Main Street. So one thing to consider, even though you're freezing, the tax value of the taxes for that specific property, what often has happened in other communities in South Carolina is once you get a project like this starting, all the other properties around it start to develop, because you just start creating the opportunity for others to see, like, if, let's say, if they come up with idea to do maybe bring housing here, a mixed-use development, that means more people are going to be living in the area, spending more money on it, which will also help to get more small businesses getting started, and all that will just increase the property value. And what this bill allows it, I think, is just to incentivize that to happen faster than if this property just sits there, who knows for how long.
It's a really good point. Since our committee meeting, when this was announced, there's actually been activity on buildings around the American Thread building as a result of us talking about this. That's how quickly it spreads.
It's good and bad. I mean, I think that's the only thing I would say, and I don't know what you need from us from this meeting. I mean, if you need us to have a motion to have you research and explore what, a draft ordinance, do we do that here? Do we make a recommendation to council? I'm not sure how you want us to do that. I personally feel like it needs to be very narrowly tailored, because what I don't want to do is to get into a situation where one place is saying, we have 9 municipalities, and we get a lot of people requesting it, and maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I 100% support us doing what we need to do to support the Clover Initiative, because they need it in order to make that happen. And, honestly, I don't know that there's ever been a time where there's been a collaborative project, so, I don't know.
Yeah,
I like that.
I agree 100%. Let me ask a question though. So if we agree on whatever the terms are going to be for Clover, is that a standard we've set for York or anywhere else in the future? Anywhere else we're going to have the Bailey bill where we're participating as a county?
Well, my suggestion is if that particular project happens to move a little faster, then we're able to create a framework. My suggestion was going to be is let the staff create a framework and bring it back to the committee first.
It's a great idea.
And make sure that you're comfortable and you can endorse it to the full council.
Okay.
That way it's fully vetted. But I don't think that prohibits us, if American Thread moves a little faster, that we can go into a 2-minute offense, if you will.
So am I hearing you say, you guys go back, we authorize you to go back, create a framework that'll fit that project, bring it back here, we'll start there?
not only that project, but the bigger framework too.
Yeah, and I think to answer your question, probably the safe and right move is 10 years, but have a threshold that if there is a project that goes above and beyond a specific investment or impact, that we have the ability to go up to 20 years.
And this is completely discretionary. We're not going to get into a situation where we're being, I don't know. I'm hearing y'all say we still do framework that applies other places, and
No, so I think part of the next steps is looking into what can we actually allow, how narrow can we make it, how wide can we do it,
Yep.
and be able to present you with some of those options. So, like right now, I say like we have examples of how other counties have used it and how other cities, but the question is, can we go with specific to one project? So if the case, that would be part of the next steps of doing that research to say, okay, well, if it is the case, yes, we can do it. Then we could probably draft, something to say, okay, we will start with the American Thread building first, or or other areas. Or it might be that we come back and say, well, it looks like we can only do specific historic districts. So
Will you roll the slides back to the page where you're showing York, Clover, Fort Mill, Greenville, Richland, and Beaufort? Because my question really, so will we have the autonomy moving forward, assuming we do this project to project, to create what makes sense for that project? Or once we make a decision on the American Thread building, is that the framework we have to use consistently moving forward? If we agree to 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is, it seems like it would vary per development project because some are small. This is one of the largest ones probably left in the county.
We'll review through it. I think the way you do that is, again, look at thresholds and give yourself the ability to say, if there is a project that goes above and beyond, you have the ability to do 20 years.
Yes. So we do have the flexibility to create one for American Thread and then do something differently
Yes.
for another project. Okay, that's what I'm asking.
So, quick question, sorry, guys, that fun work stuff keeps getting in the way of all this fun county stuff. Question I have about this is that, I feel like we really need to keep controls over this as we move forward, because I think it becomes, you probably already talked about it.
We did.
Okay.
We got you covered.
Narrow.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad-
Narrow. Keep it tight.
Keep it tight, man. Okay, never mind.
They're gonna come back with a recommendation for us to consider.
So we will look and see how much we can limit it and how, so we will have to look into what the bill says. So we have examples of what others have used. Then we can also, if we need to get legal counsel to help
Okay.
us draft something too, we can do that.
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan.
All right, sounds good. We're gonna move on to number 4, Small Business Roadmap. Eduardo?
Yes.
Jose, thank you for being here. I know you didn't add anything, but we appreciate you being here and the work you put into what we're talking about tonight. Thank you.
Sorry, just getting my notes. All right, so what I'm going to present today is just an 18-month roadmap that we have developed in the last few weeks about how do we be able to support small businesses, but also support what it's already in or the county's strategic plan. So this roadmap provides a structured approach to implementing the priority over the next 18 months. So, just for some context over here, some strategic context, small businesses, as you know, are essential for your county's economy. They drive local job creation, strengthen community identity, and they contribute to economic resilience. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is historically this department, the Economic Development Department, has focused only in business recruitment and expansion. So this initiative, what we'll do is complement those existing efforts by now supporting growth of local businesses. So what we have proposed over here is a 3-phase plan, so for the next 18 months. So the first part will focus more on listening and building the building foundation. So what the one thing is, like I said, traditionally this office has focused on business recruitment and expansion. The community doesn't know that we are now working on small businesses. some may have heard that this is what, the strategic plan says. So we cannot really start like putting programs out there or developing initiatives without them knowing, understanding what we're doing. So the first phase is building partnerships with the ecosystem. Who is in the whole county already working with small businesses? We need to know those in Clover and York, and which I, by the way, I already started, reaching out to them, meeting with them to understand what are their pain points, what is working well in their communities. And the main thing too is we have a very diverse county. The needs of Clover and York is going to be very different than the ones from Fort Mill. And so that first piece is going to be, from now until probably summer, July. The idea is to also hold some focus groups across the county. So we will do them community by community. So going to Clover and getting together, get a group of small businesses together to, again, talk to them, to listen to them, what are they really needing. And so what we'll do, that information will help us later tailor, the programs and the type of support that we want to develop. The other piece is to to launch a small business health index or a survey, again, because we want to make sure that we can measure the impact that these programs are going to have. So we need to establish a benchmark line that say, okay, this is when we started, this is what the community was feeling back then, and then we can do it again in a year or 2 years and say, did it change anything? Did we move the needle with what the programs we put together or the systems that we develop? The U.S. Chamber of Commerce and MedLife, they develop a small business health index already. Mm-hmm. They do it at the national level. They do it every quarter. And they ask questions about, like, what are the top concerns that you have for small businesses? Are you going to hire? Are you expanding? Are you actually contracting? And so on. So the idea is some of these questions, and Jose from our research team, he has already developed a draft that we were working on this survey that we will probably do in the next couple months. But anyway, we will start with main streets first. Again, we have to start with smaller footprint too, to see how it works. Also because that's where we also have the context, those people that we're already meeting with. Yes.
Okay, go ahead and finish it, but I'll ask a question when you're done.
Yeah. So anyway, this would be the phase one, again, establishing that baseline and just getting the insights. So do you have a question?
Yes, so you're defining a small business by the number of employees or revenue?
So that depends. I mean, it depends who you ask. There's all kind of definitions. If you ask the SBA, it can be up to 499 employees or $30 million of revenue. Maybe it's even higher now. So it depends. It's something that I don't think we have a specific definition in the office. When I was with the city of Rock Hill, the way I define it, really any employees up to, any company has 1 to 50 employees. And think about like restaurants and hotels, they do have a lot of employees. And then in terms of revenue, it could be $4 or $5 million and still be considered small businesses.
Yeah, because it goes back to what Christie asked a minute ago. When you look at fee and lieu, where does that start? We know where the number is, but so what do we do for anybody that falls under that category?
Yes.
We have
Right.
significant employers, car dealerships, hotels that are contributing to our community significantly.
And I think, I keep saying this, and I hope we turn the corner and do this, and maybe we're doing it and I just haven't seen it, but I think that especially with our locals, our small businesses that have been here for a year, having an inventory of them and simply highlighting them with Yoko or with our marketing and give them some exposure and give them some one-on-one time on the camera, that has a lot of value and it doesn't cost. We're using our existing resources to do that. I mean, for the most
Yeah.
part.
You're gonna see that in the ag space first. We've already established a partnership with Caroline Lewis, and that's part of phase 2 with storytelling with small business next.
Yeah, that storytelling is a big deal. And is this, are you guys tying in also too with what the chamber's doing with the small business toolkit? So you're partnering with them on that too?
Yeah, so it will be, it will complement what others are doing. The
Okay.
reason we're proposing this approach too is to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts.
Yeah.
And really trying to build the ecosystem, try to strengthen what already exists, and not that we're just doing something else and not talking to others. So that the next phase, the phase 2, is really we're thinking about putting together an entrepreneur storytelling series. We're taking videos
Right.
about businesses across the county that we will be able to go and talk to them. And this will be quick 1 to 2 minute videos that we can tell the story about what they're doing, but also, most importantly, that other businesses can relate to that, because they say, well, I can see myself in them, and help them, have more exposure on there, but also connect with other businesses in the community.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, and again, I think that's a great idea. The only reason I'm saying is that as long as everybody is in communication, they know, other businesses know that you're connected into the toolkit, because they can see you as part of the toolkit.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of cross-pollination value there.
Can you give a high-level overview on the ag initiative and to talk about what we're going to accomplish, and then when the first video is coming out?
Yeah. Okay, so, just going back to, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, please go
Okay,
first.
Are you sure? Okay. Back to October, when we were kind of setting up the 3 communication pillars. Obviously, this is new for us. We don't have the programs. We want to be careful when we're putting it out there. What are you guys doing for us? We don't have programs yet, so we've been kind of laying a lot of the groundwork here. When with the YOCO, we partnered with Caroline Lewis, Visit York County, under Make It York County. Some of the research that Jose had done on ag, we developed a scope. Visit York County had a scope. We put both of our scopes together and contracted with Caroline Lewis. I don't know if y'all met her. She really carved an area out in the ag space. She's actually even active on the policy side, so she knows her business, and she's out there highlighting farms. So, Visit York County and I both were like, well,
Good.
how can our focus cross over? How can we maximize, the impact of it? And so she started that in January, and we have the first Follow the Farmer actually coming out this month with Cherry Hill and Rock Hill. So you're going to start to see that, which we love them.
Yes.
And then we've got probably 8 series lined up under Make It York County, but again, these are York County Economic Development Initiatives partnered with Visit York County's initiatives. Because, we were both playing in this space, and not, we need to magnify what we're doing together. So that's kind of one pillar that's being fleshed out. Then with Eduardo coming on board, obviously, now we have someone who's going to focus on this. So even with his announcement coming on, we started to notice he's getting phone calls on the small business side. People are starting to see that's in action. So we have another story coming soon on that. But we're even going to start to, just like we're saying, we're going to actually highlight Five Blossoms. They're opening up in York tomorrow night, actually. And of course, theirs is going to actually be a combo. It's going to be an ag small business. So those are 2 things. So we're really starting to pick up speed now.
That's good.
I think we were a little hesitant at first, again, to see how the community was going to react to that, and we also didn't want to send mixed messages. So probably 8 months of planning. And this will be also comprehensive. We're redoing the entire website, our entire communications plan, be vastly different from what we've done for the past 10 years. So those are the first 2, and then we'll kind of build out from there. So things to come. Yeah.
Good job.
And I merely wanted to accentuate that a little bit, because in the course of the budget process, the department is asking for additional resources to raise to the level of visibility that Chair Lady Cox is talking about, which I'm trying to be supportive of, and hopefully it'll be included in the county manager's budget recommendation.
So Tom, since you were talking to, I also was thinking about, some of the complaints you're probably going to see is the bureaucracy and the issues with challenges they have with planning or zoning, for expansion and I think like that. I think that's something that we need to be very agile with them when it comes to these issues, because I know we've had many of businesses we've met with where we've run into what we think would be a common sense solution, but we need to be quick about resolving these things to really help out. Our small businesses get crushed in a lot of different ways.
And I think some of those concerns and issues that we're going to hear them more on the,
Yeah.
when we start meeting with
Yeah.
them. And that will help us also, find if there's a better way to do it more effective.
Yeah.
When I was with the city of Rock Hill, even, it was the same thing, the businesses had, small businesses had a really hard time just trying to get their door open because
Right.
of all the
Bureaucracy.
The bureaucracy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to cut down.
Exactly.
I do think, I'm curious to know how you guys are gonna identify, because it always troubles me. It's like picking and choosing winners, and how do people how are we gonna identify the companies that are gonna be at the table to help navigate and help create this plan? One place we may wanna look, I wanna hear how y'all intend to do that and make sure that that it somehow grabs, that folks have an opportunity to be a part of that. But I know that folks that come into the planning departments looking to expand their business, I think that's a prime place to start, because we're seeing a lot of folks who call us who are the smaller folks that just really get wrapped up, and it takes them too long to get through an expansion, or I need to be able to. One of the biggest ones was the pressure washing company. That one always comes to mind, that should have been easier, and that's a small business that seems to kind of fall through the cracks. So maybe that is a place to start identifying or finding, are you coming here to open up something? How can we grab their hand and help them?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that would be another place to get some of that information. And I say that too, that we will start at the.
And it helps our planning code, which we're trying to get better too, right?
We've got work to do on that.
Well, just to finish this too, the second phase with, besides the entrepreneur storytelling piece of it, we will start a digital sales pilot program to also help businesses with, this would be Digital Main Street, really get additional tools for them to be able to sell. So think about like a retail store in Main Street. They have, they always want more foot traffic, but there's other ways that they could get more sales, including, being maybe having a website presence if they don't have it yet, or social media. There's so many other ways that the way the world is moving now. So, but before we can effectively do that, we need to test it. What is the best approach for our community? And so the thought process over here is to really have a small group of businesses across the county, maybe a handful of them, that we can put them through a program to see how they work with that program. Hopefully we have some success stories that we can then later tell. And then on phase 3 is we work on expanding those successful programs. And then the last 2 things in there is to hold a small business conference, a professional conference at a county-wide for small businesses. The goal will be to do this during Small Business Week in 2027. And the last piece, which is part of the strategic plan, is to form that small business council piece. And by then, we will have enough data and hopefully identify, the businesses that we are trying to help to really be able to be part of that council, or whatever, the best format for it. And the goal really is to build that York County small business ecosystem. This strategy is just lays the foundation for a stronger local entrepreneurship ecosystem, creates more collaboration across the municipalities. So this is another thing that, in order for this to work, we need to work with everyone that already touches small businesses, and that includes municipalities, includes our own planning department. But when they're not in the county, well, they have to deal with the cities, and they do have also those issues. It will also allow us to do data-driven small business policy. So they might, through this process, we may identify policies that we may need to change or add to be able to help small businesses. And then, of course, throughout the process, it increases our local economic resilience. And the last thing, our goal is really for your county to become known as a place where small businesses can start, they can grow, but they can also be successful over here.
Sounds good. Excellent.
Questions? Any additional?
Very good, thank you.
No, this is good. Thank you.
Just a clarification, I guess, when we say York County businesses, do we mean in unincorporated York County or anywhere in York County?
Well, my definition is anywhere in York County.
Okay,
Because, even if they're in the city of Fort Mill, they're still in the county.
yeah,
And if they need help and we can be that
exactly.
resource, I think we should be that resource.
Okay, all right, well, thank you, really appreciate all your hard work on this. I see this being extremely valuable to us and our future here in York County. All right, Mitch, Aspen Business Park update, please, sir.
I'll be extremely quick. I just wanted to give you a timeline and update. You have a sheet here in front of you. Wanted to make you aware that Rock Hill is going to be awarded the state grant that they went after, tied to Aspen Business Park. Jason let me know that a few weeks ago. I asked him for a schedule, just to kind of give you perspective of when they anticipate starting construction to finishing construction. That's really outlined there with the Phase 2 design starting June 1st and really completion probably being October to November of 2027. I know part of our commitment would require that we put those parcels in multi-county industrial park. So I've talked with Jason about that approach. I'll also get with Michael Kendry, at least to look at getting that as part of our ordinance when that goes up for approval, which is usually in December. But I wanted to at least give you a heads up and make you aware of the fact that they are getting the grant. That's the timeline for the project, and moving forward, I'll keep you updated as things progress there.
Does that include that, because I know originally there was a requirement or need for road pavement or road paving from within that facility? Is that grant going to cover?
Yeah, it'll cover full completion of roads. So
Full completion, okay.
It'll take where it's essentially dead ends and stubs
Okay.
out now
Okay.
and go all the way and connect throughout the entirety of the park.
Oh, that's
And
great.
it'll include everything curb, gutter, it'll pave and
Okay.
all that.
That's good news.
It'll be a good
very
network
good
connection
news.
for the road system, too.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly. Good news.
The Spine Road, Mitch, the Spine Road,
Yeah, and the Spine Road is part of that as well, yes.
yeah. They're connecting, I think,
Yep.
Rock Hill Coca-Cola, is that
Yep.
correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you for the update. All right, future discussions? Y'all have anything in mind?
No,
I
don't.
do. I've got one thing, and this is something that would probably be meant to catch you, but I've been busy with some other things
Okay.
lately.
Yes, you have.
I really do think that we need to consider finding a different way to do our philos, and a way that folks don't understand it. They don't understand even as these recent, probably the most cantankerous things, that's the only word that can come to mind, that I have experienced on this council have been things that have been tied to philos. And clearly, they are a necessary part of the things that we do. It's a state statutory tool that the state created because they realized that the state tax code is a problem. And so we use that code, we use that. I do think it would be important for us to consider, and if we refer it to this committee, I don't know if we can do this independently or if we need to go to council and refer it to committee, but talk through how do we, when we start a project, to have a very specific table that identifies this is the category of the business. We obviously need to protect the business, and there are some things that we're not aware of that the business needs protected. But I think that we should be in a position to give some very basic details at the outset, because we're hearing folks say, I didn't know anything about this. Now, obviously, I think that there was a lot of public information that was provided, but I do think maybe it's not at the outset, maybe it's before a resolution inducement is done, but before a commitment is made, I think that there needs to be something public that says, hey, this is gonna be, warehouse and distribution, which hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's something else. This is manufacturing, or this is something that just spells it out, so that we can look back through it and the community can see, how we do that, and potentially maybe even, put some notification requirements in it. I know we can't be too onerous, but we do need to figure out how are we gonna tackle this problem so that the community understands the importance of it, but also it buys into, these are the kinds of things that we're looking to attract.
Well, I can tell you that I, along with the ED staff, we're having active conversations on how to do that, and you're addressing a couple of legs. One is transparency, of course, to the extent that you can have it. And then what our conversations have been involved with is structure. Identifying tiers or thresholds of a mix of job creation, capital investment, targeted industries. You know, what are things that we want to bring into a structure that will actually, in our view, qualify companies to get FELOs. So there's a lot of consultants who do that kind of stuff. I don't know that we need a consultant. There are certainly enough brains on this side of the table and over there at that table that can figure it out. But we are in the beginning conversations of doing that. But then perhaps we need to get more feedback as to how transparent you want to be to that certain point.
I think the non-disclosure agreement that we signed dictates some of this, so.
It does.
It almost would be a bit of a negotiation with the employer potentially, on
But
what
he-
they're willing to allow us to release.
Correct. And I think when you're not under an NDA, you don't have to get into that, but you need to set it up to where once the company is announced, exposed, you have all of the data and ammunition you need to say, this is a good investment for York County, and it's the kind of company that the community wants.
Right. I would say, going back to your question, Christie, I would say what's wrong with economic development and our assistant county manager completing some due diligence on this and coming back to us with some information, not even a recommendation, just information. We're already delivering
think-
fee and lose.
Yeah, and I think to the extent that y'all are doing that, I think it would be important for you to bring that back to the council when you do your report, just to say, we're talking about that since it's not technically something that's assigned to our committee right now. I don't know.
Really, it's a structured incentives policy is what we're talking about.
Right.
Transparent.
A
As
transparent.
transparent as possible. What is that?
Yes.
ATAS?
Well, this isn't, this isn't,
ATAP.
this isn't specific to York County. Communities all over South Carolina and beyond the region are really feeling some of the same things, and transparency is a key part of that. So I know that we could probably look at some best practices. I'm sure some of that's already been talked about across this region, so I can research on that and see what other communities are doing too.
Okay, I'll bring it up Monday night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got to think, once you mention that though, and I guess this is just a general comment, you know, I don't think we've really talked about this for a long time, but, you know, South Carolina being a right-to-work state, you know, as we recruit new businesses in here, I'm just curious on how we're approaching the value of this being a right-to-work state when we look at other states that are unionized, where are we continuing to push that value of what we have here from a non-union perspective?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's always part of the conversation when companies are looking to locate. It's probably why you see South Carolina really is one of the top states to do
Yeah.
business, because it is attractive from many different avenues, and that being one where labor is probably the biggest, cost to anyone.
Yeah, yeah, okay, no, it's good. Just, it hadn't been brought up for a bit, so I was curious on your feedback.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. There are matters we need to discuss in executive session related to Project Utopia and Project Palmetto Rock. Is there a motion to go into executive
Motion
session?
for executive session.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So we're going to move into executive session. Everybody.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
We're adjourned.
all right, all right.